All right, we're going to get started with the media availabilities for today's Coors Light Pole Award qualifying for the 59th Annual Daytona 500 here at Daytona International Speedway. We are joined by Dale Earnhardt Jr., the driver of the number 88 Nationwide Chevrolet, who has qualified second for the Daytona 500 and will start on the front row alongside his Hendrick Motorsports teammate. Dale, why don't you just take us through your qualifying run out there?
Yeah, ain't much to it. The car does all the work. We just kind of get to the, the transitions are kind of important as far as feeding the car into the corner, but and also running as tight as you can on the apron without bouncing the skirt off the apron or giving up any speed or just time, adding feet to your lap by running high. At least a little bit can make a big difference. But other than that, the driver, I don't think he's feeling like he's in control of too much. The car's doing most of the work, and I didn't know where we stood against the competition yesterday in practice. It's real hard to figure out what guys are doing, how they're trimming their cars out, and whether to trust the speed you're seeing from people. Alan, I don't think, had a ton of confidence in what they had yesterday, but when it came time, both of us were able to show up, and it's good to be on the front row. I certainly loved to have gotten the pole, but I know my boss man's happy. I just talked to him on the phone, and he's got to be thrilled with having his cars up front.
All right, we'll open up to questions for Dale. Raise your hand, and we will get a microphone to you. We'll start up here with Bob.
Bob Hawkers, ESPN. Are you excited about where you're starting, or are you worried after seeing Jimmy spin out twice on his own in the race earlier today?
Well, obviously, I spun out twice last year. Alex spun out once in our car. All of them really similar situations. Jimmy had issue twice today. The 24 wrecking, 500, same thing. We're definitely aware of it, and we're looking at our notes from over the years. We dominated. I thought we ran great in 2015. So we look at what we did then and what we're doing now and sort of go through the process of elimination, and that's kind of what we've been doing until we fix it. So it's going to be real hard to get enough practice. We're going to practice as much as we can, but you got to have guys out there, enough guys out there to kind of put yourself in enough situations to get the confidence in the balance of the car. And so I don't know if we'll really achieve that, because people don't really practice that much for this race. They might, considering how the balance is changing with the track and stuff, and it's getting a little slicker. But hopefully a lot of guys will practice. We'll get out there and practice. We're not worried about tearing a car up. We got good cars, good backups. So we'll go out there and practice hard, try to figure out if we can help our balance. Like I said, Greg's already changed a lot of things, going over our notes from the past several years. So that's built my confidence. I've had some conversations with him even today that's actually built my confidence on us remedying that problem. So, and in the qualifying race too, I mean, with the points on the line, we're going to race, try to win. So we'll get opportunity to see how the balance is working there. If I got any concerns, we'll try to address it.
Any final questions for Dale? All right, Dale, congratulations.
All right. You guys have a good day.
All right, we're going to continue with our media availabilities for today's Coors Light Pole Award qualifying. We are now joined by Crew Chief Alan Gustafson with the number 24 NAPA Chevrolet. Alan is the first crew chief since Ernie Elliott in 1985 to 1987 to win 3 consecutive poles for the Daytona 500. Alan, why don't you just talk us a little bit through that qualifying run today?
Yeah, I'm pretty shocked, to be honest with you. I didn't think yesterday we had great speed relative. Is it not on? Hello. Okay. Pretty shocked, honestly. I thought yesterday we didn't have great speed in comparison to the competition, and we were a little bit off and couldn't seem to improve our NAPA Chevy any. We worked hard on it, and it was a bit difficult, a bit of a trying day, so we just collectively pulled our heads together and worked hard last night to come up with some solutions, and really threw a lot at the car today. We changed a lot of things more than you'd typically like to change prior to a qualifying event like this. So great outcome, and just a great testament to the team effort and everybody at HMS and all the hard work. And obviously Hendrick Engines is a huge part of our success in having both cars on the front row. So really proud for the organization, proud for the boss, really happy for Chevrolet. Just a good day all in all.
All right, we'll open up to questions for Alan. If you have a question, please raise your hand. We will get a wireless mic to you. We'll come up here to Bob.
Bob Hawker, ESPN. I have a couple. The first is just, well, what can this do for your team's kind of psyche going into next week?
It can be really good. I think, it gives you a lot of confidence with the speed of the car, and the car has the ability to run fast. But ultimately, based on what we saw today, really I think it was pretty fortunate for all of us to race today in the day to know what the track conditions would be like. So, you saw today the cars are going to have to handle and drive well. So the good news is we have the speed in our car, and I think we're going to have to work hard on it to get it to handle. The flip side of it is we've been in this position a few times, fortunately, and you just can't, you can't sit back and say, oh, we're good, or, we've got the fastest car there. You can, just kind of go poke around. You've got to work hard and race hard and work on your car. So, our experience with being on the pole, I think, will help us there.
And do you have to try to tell Chase to put last year's Daytona 500 out of his mind?
No, I don't think so. It was the whole week was of all the I don't know that it was our worst performance all year, but it was probably one of the toughest weeks because there's just a lot of tension and unknowns, and that was maybe the only time all year I saw some of the pressure affect him. So I don't think he necessarily needs to put it out of his mind. I think he needs to learn from it, which I think he has, and that'll have him better prepared to go on Sunday. There's no, when you're on, you start this race, Daytona 500, you're on the front row, there's like, man, it's like, it's crazy. It's just chaos. Like there's, thousands of people everywhere. You can't barely get next to the car. And, having gone through that last year, I think that'll help him a little bit. But I think he needs to learn from it. I think he will. And, he's done a really good job on plate track. So I think he'll be suited to run well on Sunday.
Any additional questions for Alan? Go to Dustin.
Dustin Long, NBC Sports. Alan, in the Clash today, we saw Jimmy spin off a 4 on his own. We saw it happen with the Hendrick cars last year. So and I know it's different cars and different rules, but it's easy to start connecting dots. How much of a concern is it? Did you guys have issues? I think Jimmy mentioned he thought the 24, you guys were loose. We saw Chase loose once or twice off of 4. What kind of an issue is it and a concern is it?
It's a concern. I think the crash last year was indicative of some car performance things. I don't think, last year we had to race the 150s at night, and that was the only opportunity that when we race 150s at night, we'll do that again, assuming weather's good. But that was our only opportunity on track to really get the car balanced, and the cars just drive so much better at night. And then the subsequent days, Friday and Saturday, nobody practices. And it's really frustrating for me because I think it's really important to practice in the sun and the heat. So last year, I don't think we had the car very good for Chase to start with Daytona 500 due to lack of practice and just kind of lack of experience with him and what he was going to need in the car. So racing today was a big deal. We went to July, even though that's at night. It's a much slicker race. July race in 16, we brought kind of a different philosophy in a different car setup, and the car handled and drove really well. We ultimately got in a crash, but we're going to lean on that. So this is a long-winded way of saying, we have things in place to try to improve that, and we're very aware of it. And this car we brought this car specifically for that reason and expected to take some hit today. So I'm really surprised we were able to run as well as we did today. Your question is probably the best thing I can do is lobby for it here. Yeah, it's just, I don't know how to describe it. It's a frustrating thing. I think you need 20 cars, at least. And if you don't have 20 cars, you're probably not going to get a great read on what your car is going to do. And really, you need to have 20 cars for more than 5, 6, 7 laps at a time. So obviously, there's inherent risk with that. We know that. If you're going out there and you're in a pack and your car's not driving well, there's an opportunity to crash. But I'd much rather find that out early than I would, during the race. Obviously, even if you would have to go to the backup car and we'd have to go to the back or whatever would happen, it's still a better alternative than that happening during the Daytona 500. Sure.
We'll go over to Caleb and then up front to Godwin.
Caleb Whistler, Speedway Digest. With the duels paying out points now, have you begun strategizing how you're going to maximize those points while keeping the pole position?
Yeah, I mean that's a great question. It's a pretty unique situation. I've always had the philosophy to race hard during the duels. I think it's the best way to go about it. I think you have to continue, like I said, to develop your car and research your setup and work on improving your car. The night race, kind of takes some value away from that over years past. But now that it pays points, you're going to have to look at it a little bit differently and focus on trying to win it. That would be great. And then, B, if not, you want to come out of there with some points. In the past, I can think of a situation with both Jeff and Mark when we were on the front row. I don't know if we're on the poles or not, but, at the end of the race, when you're 4th, 5th in line and it's pretty dodgy, we just would bail out. In the last lap, I remember Mark bailing out off of 4 and just coming, to the bottom. And ultimately finishing, wherever it was, 20th place, but saving the car because he thought there was a potential for a crash, and obviously you can't do that anymore.
We'll take a final question for Alan from Godwin.
You're from Daytona. This is your home track. You get an extra little bit of satisfaction when you have an accomplishment here?
Yeah, for sure. This is a special place. This is a place, this is where really my racing career started, and I came to when I was a kid and, fell in love with motorsports and watched all kinds of racing here, from 24 Hours, the Daytona 500 to the Supercross to, go-karts to everything. So it is a special place. It's bittersweet for me because we've had really great success on qualifying day and not great success on the Daytona 500. So I really want to try to find a way to get a win in the Daytona 500 and have some success on Sunday of the race. So we're going to work hard on that. That's the ultimate goal. But it's nice. Anytime you can accomplish anything here, it's one of those things that you're obviously very proud of. You can see today, everybody brings their best effort. Everybody brings their best stuff. Everybody does everything they can do. It's amazing to me how close the times are. I mean, it's just unreal to run around here and have times and speeds that close. So proud of that. But, our focus is still for the 500 and A, getting a good finish, and B, trying to win it.
All right, Alan, thanks for joining us today, and good luck next week.
Thanks.
And we will conclude our Coors Light Pole Award qualifying for the Daytona 500. We are joined by our Coors Light Pole Award winner, Chase Elliott, the driver of the number 24 NAPA Chevrolet. A couple quick facts here for you, Chase. You are the 5th driver in Monster Energy NASCAR Cup Series history to win consecutive Daytona 500 poles. Your dad, Bill Elliott, is on that list. You and your dad are also the 4th father-son duo to win the Daytona 500 pole. Why don't you talk a little bit about that and your run out there today?
Yeah, I think that's really cool. Somebody told me, and I'm not sure the exact fact, maybe somebody here can help, but either the first time I think a car, the same car or the same engine builder has won 3 Daytona 500 poles in a row since Uncle Ernie and my dad did. Is that right?
That's correct, back in
Okay.
85 to 87.
Yeah, that's really cool to me. Somebody told me that a minute ago, and that's pretty neat. So I'm happy to have a small part in that for sure. I think that's really cool. And to date back, I know how much success they had down here and how much they enjoyed coming and how good Dad was at racing at this place and how good Uncle Ernie is at building motors to this day means a lot to me. So that's pretty cool.
All right, we will open up to questions for our poll winner. Please raise your hand. We'll get a wireless mic to you. We'll start with Bob.
Bob Hockers, ESPN. Are you thinking about how cool it is to win the pole, or trying to figure out, how you can get the car better from what you felt in your Clash car earlier today?
Yeah, I'm definitely thinking about, the race and what we can do to try to improve there. You know, Daytona was certainly a struggle for us last year, just as far as, getting in wrecks or wrecking and tearing up a lot of cars. So I hope we can just make it to the end of the race next week. That's obviously a huge battle at times, and I think as this racetrack is wore and the surface gets older, tires are going to mean more, which I think is good for the folks that are sitting in those grandstands across from us and the folks watching on TV, which is good. So I think that's going to have a little bit of a strategy play to it, and obviously qualifying well is great. I don't necessarily know that the starting spot means quite as much as the pit road selection, and that first pit stall I think can be a pretty big benefiting factor if you use it to your advantage. And unfortunately last year I didn't make it to the first pit stop, so we didn't get to use it. So I hope we can use it this year and use it all day long would be a big help. So we're thinking about that for sure to answer your question, and I think we have some good things and notes that we learned today to try to help for next week, and I hope we can just capitalize on all that and try to put ourselves in a good spot.
Any additional questions for Chase? Up here to Godwin, and then we'll go to Brant.
Godwin Kelly, News Journal. Chase, is winning the pole kind of a double-edged sword because you're the pole winner for a week rather than a day or two, and it's the Daytona 500. You've been through this before. Do you know what distractions to avoid now?
Oh, I think the biggest thing is, as everybody knows, it's not so much about where you start, more about where you finish. So Daytona 500 pole day, as it should be, is more about the teams and what they bring over the off season, from the chassis shop to the 24 shop in particular, the body shop, our Hendrick department, Chevrolet. I think that's what Daytona 500 qualifying has always been about. I think that's where the attention should be centered. I think from a driver standpoint and from the race standpoint next week, the biggest thing you can take away is that pit stall, I feel like. And once you get in the race, I think there are cars that race better, draft better than they might appear to qualify. Look at these two clowns right here in the door. Y'all can't see them, they're hiding. Appreciate that. Hey, I wish. But anyways, so like I said, I think that's the biggest thing you can take away from that, and just try to use those couple things to our advantage next week would be the biggest thing.
We'll go to Brant, and then Dan and Bob.
For as great as this accomplishment is for you and your family history, is there any tinge of, if not guilt, some emotion that you denied the junior storyline that certainly would have made a great deal of people happy today?
Oh, well, I think, obviously Dale is good down here, and we all knew he was going to be fast today. That's no surprise, but I don't really care who it is. I'm not going to feel bad about beating somebody. So, it's cool to share a front row with a teammate really the biggest thing I look at with that. But, Dale's a good guy. I'm happy to share the front row with him, but happier to beat him, obviously. But regardless who it is, that's what you're trying to do,
We'll go to Dan.
Dan Gelston, the Associated Press. Chase, what was the week for you like last year from Sunday to Sunday? Not just obviously what you did here, but out off the track. And did you find you had too many commitments or just enough?
Yeah, last year was pretty straightforward. We had a great week or a couple weeks of speed weeks leading into the 500, all the way up until the 500. Unfortunately, the day that mattered most, and we had a great run in the Xfinity race last year, which was a lot of fun, and got to go up and ride with the Thunderbirds last year in between the qualifying day and the race, which was pretty neat. So I don't have that planned this year, but we'll hang out for a couple days and take care of all the media obligations and things that NASCAR has scheduled for us, and we'll be ready to rock and roll come next week.
We'll go to Bob and then Dustin.
Bob Hockers, ESPN. I have two more. What do you remember about race day last year, being your first Daytona 500, let alone being on the pole?
Yeah, for sure. It was obviously first stab at a full-time Cup effort, which was just a lot going on. It seemed like, and kind of going through the motions of that first Daytona 500. All the folks that are here, the folks from whether it's sponsor people or people that NASCAR is invited. There's just a lot of people here, you know, and kind of working your way through all those obligations, and there's a lot that comes along with that. So I feel like for me, it was just kind of the beginning of trying to, you know, battle through the obligations and make sure you have your sights set on the race, you know, when it comes around. And, you know, the way our races are set up, you know, we have so much stuff that lead basically all the way up until the time you get in the car. You know, when you finally get in the car, you're finally like, okay, you know, we're here and we can get going. So I think just being able to flip that switch when you get out in the grid and actually finally pile in the car, you know, obviously that's a big point in time.
And does last year's 500 motivate you? I mean, are you going to go into this one saying, I'm going to show that I'm not going to wreck early?
I sure would like to not wreck. That's my goal every week is to not wreck. But you know, hey, you know, I definitely made a mistake last year, and you know, got in a wreck in the July race too. So 2 for 2 on tearing up a lot of stuff in 2016 down here. So I hope that's not the case. But no, that's a given. I mean, I'm not going to try to wreck. To answer your question, absolutely not. I think it does a little bit of both. I mean, I learn things from it, and it certainly motivates me to want to not do that for sure. But hey, you know, you got to take it as it comes, and we'll see what happens this time.
All right, and we'll wrap up with Dustin.
Dustin Long, NBC Sports. You talked earlier about the tires and kind of the wear and how this track is wearing a little bit. Even from last year to this week, can you kind of explain how that's creating, how different that is? What is that making you feel? What's the car doing differently out there on the track from last July, even from a year ago?
Well, the grip is just going away, you know, and this, you know, racetracks that sit down here in Florida that, you know, bake in the sun all day long, that it stays warm all year. You know, it just puts a lot of age on the track. You can also say the same about, you know, places like a Michigan or some of those spots who have super hot summers but also get snow in the winter. So that can be tough on a surface too. But it seems like these Florida tracks really lose a lot of color in the racetrack really fast, and I think that's just because they have a lot of rain. It, you know, bakes in the sun all day, and it doesn't get super cold. So all that stuff added together, the racetrack just losing grip. And I think as the solution or the rocks, you know, in the racetrack become more and more coarse, and we see that discoloration in the racetrack surface as all that stuff goes away. You know, tires are becoming more and more important as the run goes on. So I do think it's going to be important, you know, especially if the temperatures are up like it looks like they're going to be throughout next week, to have tires on your car where you can make some moves and not bust your tail.
All right, Chase. Well, congratulations and good luck next week in the Daytona 500.
All right, thank you.
Oh, thanks.